Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, today we are going to unpack a truly fascinating, almost mind-bending philosophical perspective on South Korea's rapid cultural rise. We're talking about what some are actually calling its cosmic destiny. Now, whether you've been obsessively following the global explosion of K-culture, or you're just kind of curious about the deeper, maybe more spiritual narratives that some people attach to this whole phenomenon, you are definitely in the right place. We're going to look at a highly unique worldview that frames decades of history, pop culture, and just everyday human interaction as part of a massive, grand design. So here is our roadmap for today. We'll be covering why the world is suddenly seeking Korea, its history of suppression and growth, this really cool concept of cultural absorption, the shift from basic knowledge to social education, and finally, the concept of Hongik Ingan and the year 2030. All right, Section 1, Why the World Seeks Korea. Let's dive right into this massive global influx. To kick things off, here is a really surprising phenomenon to wrap your head around. Royal families from places like Iran and Saudi Arabia, people with virtually unlimited global resources, are actually sending their grandchildren to Korea right now. And the wild part? It's not just to secure tech deals or trade. They're going specifically for education and culture. And honestly, that brilliantly illustrates our core question for this first section. Why is the world suddenly flocking to South Korea? I mean, what exactly is drawing the world's absolute elite to this specific country right at this moment? Well, the source material we're looking at today argues that it's part of a much larger, highly intentional awakening. It's essentially a shift from being a nation that produces physical goods to a nation that produces global teachings. Moving right along to Section 2, the history of suppression and growth. So, according to this philosophy, Korea's journey maps onto a very specific, almost cosmic timeline. It kicks off with the big global reset in 1945, right after World War II. Then we jump all the way to 2012, which supposedly marks the official end of an era of global suppression for the country. 2013 then sparks this grand era of awakening, and that leads us directly into 2030, which is the year Korea is predicted to step fully into its role as global educators. Now, historically speaking, Korea was absolutely suppressed by great global powers prior to 2012. And here's where it gets interesting. This philosophy frames that hardship as a deliberate cosmic design. The whole idea? The nation literally had to be kept grounded. It had to be held down until it was mature enough to handle its own power. If all this immense potential was unleashed too early, it could have been totally chaotic. But post-2013, the chains basically came off, resulting in the country just bursting with cultural and technological freedom. And the result of all that pent-up growth is exactly what we're seeing today. Modern Korea transitioned from this highly restricted, tightly controlled space into an incredibly vibrant, almost chaotic playground of ideologies. Instead of collapsing under the heavy weight of massive global concepts like democracy or communism, they built up an ideological immune system. They developed this incredible capacity to absorb, test, and safely manage these global ideologies, essentially building the internal strength to handle the playground without ever losing their own core identity. Okay, Section 3, Pop songs and cultural absorption. Let's look at how this played out on a micro level. To really see how this timeline affected everyday people, the speaker shares this deeply personal, super vivid story of growing up poor. Instead of a traditional classroom, his education basically involved selling newspapers on the street just to survive, but at the same time obsessively absorbing foreign music and movies. He talks about hanging out outside a local record shop called Story Saw, just listening to Elvis Presley and international pop songs. With the help of older friends at local music cafes and theaters, he was able to take in this absolute flood of global culture. He'd watch foreign films over and over again, studying the designs, the behaviors, and the ideas of the outside world. Now here is where the philosophy takes a really fascinating turn. This massive influx of 1970s pop culture, it wasn't just for entertainment. In this worldview, it is seen as a deliberate global sacrifice. Basically, the rest of the world was churning out this immense amount of culture specifically to feed Korea the raw data it desperately needed to grow. It was information meant to be fully absorbed and digested so that eventually Koreans could use it to spark entirely new cultural creations of their own. It's like a giant cosmic download. Which brings us to Section 4, From Knowledge to Social Education. This is really the heart of the whole argument. At the absolute core of this philosophy is a really stark contrast. On one side, you have knowledge, acquiring hard skills, facts, memorization, and talents. And that is something Korea has pretty much entirely mastered. But on the other side is social education. And this isn't about academics at all. This is about deeply understanding human relations, figuring out your place in society, and truly knowing how to treat other people. The speaker argues that while the world as a whole has gained massive amounts of knowledge, we are severely lacking in genuine social education. So what you should take away from this is incredibly practical, honestly, regardless of your background. The speaker emphasizes that your personal talents, your hard skills, all that knowledge you've built up, that's what attracts opportunities and people to your door in the first place. But if you lead with ego and you treat those people poorly because you lack social education, you are going to drive them all away. Like, you might get popular, sure, but it won't last. Ultimately, it is your social education, how you value and interact with the humans around you, that dictates your true long-term success. Finally, Section 5, Hongik Ingan and the Future in 2030. Let's zoom back out to the big picture. To understand where this is all heading, we actually have to look at a very specific mathematical ratio the speaker brings up, Ildang-Beck, which roughly translates to 1 matching 100. This philosophy takes this 1 to 100 ratio and applies it directly to global populations following that massive World War II reset we talked about earlier. The claim here is pretty wild. It suggests that global populations were grown in perfect intentional synchronization. Just think about the numbers for a second. Right after World War II, the world population was around 3 billion, while Korea's was 30 million. Fast forward to the modern era, as the globe hit 7 billion, Korea hit 70 million. This exact 1 to 100 ratio is viewed not as a coincidence, but as a cosmic design meant to foster Korea's specific destiny, to guide the world stage. It's the idea that each one person in Korea is energetically matched to 100 people globally. And all of this, the history, the cultural absorption, the population growth, it all builds up to an ancient traditional Korean concept known as Hongik Ingan. Traditionally, this just means to broadly benefit the human world. However, the source material frames this much more deeply, suggesting that Koreans are essentially heaven's descendants, specifically destined to become these global leaders. So their ultimate role isn't just to be wealthy or to dominate pop culture. No, it's to take all that absorbed global knowledge and use it to genuinely benefit, serve, and educate all of humanity. And that perfectly sets up the major prediction for the year 2030. According to this worldview, the massive wave of tourists and K-culture fans flooding into Korea right now, that's just a testing phase. People are basically just checking the country out. But by the year 2030, the global community is going to stop coming merely for tourism or entertainment. Instead, they'll arrive seeking genuine teachings, real-life guidance, and true social education from the people of Korea. Now, to actually reach this grand destiny, the speaker's final advice is wonderfully grounded. Step 1, leave your ego at the door and stop just showing off what you know. Step 2, focus deeply on how you treat every single person in your life. And Step 3, work joyfully together. The speaker insists that if you approach your life with joy and a collaborative spirit, well, everything else is just going to fall into place naturally. As we wrap up this explainer on what is undeniably a very rich and sweeping philosophical perspective, I want to turn it back to you. Because whether you buy into the whole cosmic timeline or not, the core message about human connection here is universally powerful. So I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought. How are you applying social education to your own human relationships today? Are you just busy gathering knowledge and showing off your talents? Or are you genuinely learning how to treat the people who come into your life? Really think about it. Thanks so much for learning with me today, and I'll see you in the next explainer.